Review of the Outlast Trials. Number 1, we have story. As far as I understand the story currently, you, the player, are a down-on-your-luck sort of person who comes across an offer to contribute to something bigger. Unfortunately, this turns out to be some MK Ultra type experiments, where the Murkoff Corporation is attempting to succeed in developing a form of mind control or brainwashing through special therapies. These therapies are pretty much tantamount to torture. A bit more to the story as well, which is touched upon by finding confidential documents in each level, and characters in the sleep room will tell you more about things that have happened or that are going on as you level up. Number 2, we have sound and sound design. Red Barrels has always excelled when it comes to sound and sound design in their games, in my opinion. The music, and sometimes lack of it, really help build the tension while you're playing. Most of the time, I find myself tensing up exclusively thanks to the music, because it has also become one of my main indicators of being spotted by enemies. In general, while you're making your way through therapy unspotted, there usually isn't much in the way of music, just environmental sounds. There's a surprising amount going on in each level, which really helps immerse you in the mood of the game, and you don't really notice the lack of music. Voice acting is also superb, as always, from Red Barrel. The voice acting is also superb, as always, from Red Barrels, and can really make some people feel very unsettled. There will also be points where you have to do fairly unpleasant things, which are accompanied by fairly unpleasant sounds, which has been super well done and certainly had me feeling unsettled in some of the therapies. In a game like the Outlast Trials, directional audio and knowing where things are coming from is very important. You really have to listen at points, and the directional audio has been super well done and is super easy to tell where things are coming from, which is something I sometimes struggle with in other games. Graphics and visual design. The Outlast Trials is absolutely gorgeous, probably the best looking game by Red Barrels so far. The enemy designs feel a lot more realistic and organic than in the first Outlast, and a little bit more than Outlast 2. The game seems to take place inside of fictional sets inside of a warehouse, representing places like a police station, orphanage, or a dock. There's a lot of blood, gore, and viscera scattered around most levels, with each having a certain unpleasantness about it, depending on what the area is and who the prime asset is that wanders said area. As an example, in the levels associated with prime asset Franco Barbie, there's an excess of sexual violence, torture against women in specific, and a lot of milk. Like the type of gore and whatnot scattered about each level reflects parts of that prime asset's personality. I really enjoy the grimy, suffocating feel that most levels have, thanks to the set dressings and the oppressive, extra darkening feeling of the warehouse roof overhead. Controls. I've had zero issues with the controls and controller feedback so far in the Outlast Trials. Controls are very similar to the original Outlast series, except a bit more smooth or streamlined, and there are more things to remember as there are more interactions and equipment in the trials than the other entries. The player character can run, but running feels slow in a good way, almost like you're in a nightmare. I feel this was probably done by design, as it really contributes to that nightmarish and impossible to escape feeling in therapy sessions. Gameplay. The Outlast Trials is very different from the previous Outlast games in quite a few ways. You still can't fight back, but you do have access to equipment and items that can distract and debilitate enemies. As you level up, you also unlock access to special perks and traits that grant abilities, making therapy sessions easier. Gameplay still consists of mostly sneaking around, but this time around there isn't really any linear story to play through. You choose from multiple therapy sessions to embark on, from the sleep room, which is a player hub, to the location of that session. There are two types of sessions: core therapies, which take around 45 minutes, and MK challenges, which take around 15 minutes. There's also a mode called Escalation, which is sort of an endless roguelite mode where you go through multiple different therapies with varied side missions until either everyone is dead or you decided you've had enough. To go through each level, you can unlock a perk after that therapy. If you've done the optional side mission, you can choose an additional perk. There's also always different weekly challenges therapies in rotation. The Trials also contains daily, weekly, and progress-related tasks that grant experience, special unlocks, and tickets for the self-contained equipment passes. I'm not too sure what to call them, but they're similar to battle passes but solely unlocked via gameplay. Enter therapies solo or with up to 3 other players. While playing with others, you can bring in different types of equipment to have synergy and to make sessions that much easier. Also kick enemies to help others escape when caught. Enemies can hear you as well, so you have to be extra careful in that regard while playing with others. Crouching reduces almost all noise, rendering the player near invisible while moving crouched and in the dark to most enemies. During therapy, you'll progress through different assignments with the required goals being in different areas of the maps each run, adding to the replayability value of each type of therapy. Outside of escalation mode, each therapy session will have a side mission of finding and tearing down 3 propaganda posters. Doing so will grant a bonus amount of experience at the end of the current therapy session. And personal thoughts. Well, it can be fairly disturbing. I haven't been as frightened at points as I have been in the previous entries. There's almost a lack of tension that I had in the previous entries, but I'm still really enjoying it. I think I enjoy the Outlast Trials the most out of the 3 games in the series so far, and I've already played it quite a bit more than the other entries. I started up almost daily, since some therapies can be run super fast. I'm not a huge fan of not being able to pause and resume whenever though, as sometimes I just want a few minutes of Outlast. The shorter trials can be good for this, but it would still be nice to be able to jump in or out whenever, like the first 2 entries, when you're at least playing solo. Overall, it's a super solid game that feels a bit more like a Saw movie with an Outlast reskin. It's quickly become one of my favorites, and at time of publishing this review, Red Barrels will have just released new content in celebration of the 1st year anniversary since the Outlast Trials released out of early access. There are special anniversary items to be earned, a new special event, 2 new MK Challenge trials, lore, and more to come. If you're a horror or gore fan, and whether you have friends or not, I would highly recommend the Outlast Trials as it can be a really fun experience.